Hi, I'm Dr. John. I'm a literary critic, and here are my top 10 film adaptations of the period classics ranked. I've trawled through the archives and seen a lot of Reddit threads, and I've whittled it down to my top 10. I think number one is going to surprise you because I haven't seen it on any other lists. So I recently did a deep dive video on the novel Wuthering Heights, followed up with a little video on the adaptation problem that Wuthering Heights seems to suffer from. And thanks to all the amazing comments and insights from you, my lovely viewers, a new discussion emerged, which are the best adaptations and why? Okay, so very quickly, the ground rules. This list is only for English language novels that have been adapted. And the second rule is that I wanted some historical distance from publication date to movie release. So this is for the period classics, so that will be works published before World War II. I'm filming. And at my number 10 is Orlando from 1992, directed by Sally Potter. How do you film a story where the main character lives for 300 years and changes gender? Who else but Tilda Swinton could pull this one off? She's amazing in this film. It's a difficult adaptation to do. Virginia Woolf's complex original novel is a challenge. Orlando, the book, is often read as a love letter and literary tribute to Vita Sackville West, Virginia Woolf's friend and lover. Vita's aristocratic background and her fluid sexuality fed into the creation of this character, Orlando. And like the novel, the film is layered, complex, and poetic. And Sally Potter takes some liberties with the original work. But for me, it's done in a way that honors the spirit of the book. And the result shows that in some cases, a good adaptation can stray from the original source material if it plays well into the storytelling. So it's my number 10. At number 9, we have Jane Eyre from 2011, directed by Kari Joji Fukunaga. I also did a deep dive video on Jane Eyre, the novel, and this adaptation came back to my mind. Fukunaga has directed some incredible work, including the first season of True Detective, one of the best Bond films, No Time to Die, It, and one of my personal favorite Netflix shows, Maniac. With Jane Eyre, I think Fukunaga brings us a version of Jane where we can explore her difficult, traumatic, abusive, and heart-wrenching childhood, her abuse at Lowood School, but also her complex encounters with both Rochester and St. John Rivers, who I think is played excellently by Jamie Bell. Mia Wasikowska is believable as Jane, and I'm a big fan of Michael Fassbender in most of his work, and in this, he's good, but I'm placing this film at number 9 because I think the adaptation lacks some of the passionate energy that we get from the book. At number 8 is Greta Gerwig's version of Little Women from 2019. I think this treatment of Olcott's novel is lush and fun and lovingly created. The dynamic chemistry between Saoirse Ronan and Timothée Chalamet, for me, works. And it gives this version the edge over the 1994 version with Christian Bale. I've put it in at number 8 only because there's stiff competition in this list, but I took my daughters to see this film and I'm really glad I did. And at number 7, who doesn't love the 1993 version of The Secret Garden? The 2020 remake is more visually lush, but I think it adds some unnecessary supernatural elements that dilute the kind of core story of this novel. For me, the 1993 version honors the healing, transformative, and restorative themes of the novel. Number 6 was a tough decision for me because it's between two films, but I've chosen Kenneth Branagh's Henry V. For me, this is a great adaptation from the build-up to the Battle of Agincourt, the famous St. Crispin's Day speech, and the funny franglais love scene in Act 5. This film delights in the storytelling of what could be adapted into quite a dry history. And I think Shakespeare's history plays don't tend to be adapted as much as his love comedies or his tragedies, his psychological tragedies like Macbeth or Hamlet. For that reason, I've put it in at number 6. But I was very close to choosing Much Ado About Nothing, which I also love for very different reasons. At number 5 is 1995's Sense and Sensibilities, directed by Ang Lee. I think this adaptation is pretty much loved by all Austen fans, and with good reason, with Emma Thompson and Alan Rickman and Kate Winslet and Hugh Grant all giving great performances, and I shouldn't forget Imelda Staunton from that list. Apparently, the anecdote about Emma Thompson, who adapted this screenplay herself, spending 5 years working on it to make it as perfect as possible, and then losing all of her work in a computer bug, only for a repairman to fail to retrieve it and her to then grab her computer, run to a taxi cab, and go to her friend Stephen Fry's house, who eventually restored all of her work. Apparently, this anecdote is true. It makes the film even more lovely. And at number 4, we have something by the Coen brothers, some favorite directors of mine. I love so much of their work, and in 2021 they turned their attentions to Macbeth in The Tragedy of Macbeth. I expected to not like this adaptation. It's filmed in black and white. The Coen brothers use some German expressionism and film noir influences. There's a lot of architecture and shadows and contrast. But I actually think it works incredibly well. The ambient architecture on the screen serves to give both a feeling of space and claustrophobia. The walls and shadows seem to move in as Macbeth considers his psychological trauma and guilt in the face of murder. I think the acting is good. Frances McDormand deserves particular praise as Lady Macbeth, and the overall delivery works for me really well. At number 3, I have 1995's A Room with a View, directed by James Ivory. I have a soft spot for all of the Merchant Ivory films, and for me, this is the best of them. To me, it's an almost perfect adaptation. It's witty, it's character-led, it's perfectly cast, and it has been voted one of the best-loved films of all time. This is a story that is not heavy on plot, and so it relies very much on character-driven narrative. I think Denham Elliott, Maggie Smith, Daniel Day-Lewis and Simon Callow, and Helena Bonham Carter all deliver great performances. And in their hands, what could have been quite a starchy period melodrama turns into a funny, witty, and playful human drama that explores the conflict between social conventions and personal liberty. Our protagonist is swayed between passion and repression. And if you let it, I think this film will change how you travel. I watched it at the cinema when it first came out. Yes, I'm that old. And it certainly gave me a desire to travel Italy. Who can forget the scene with Mr. Emerson, played by Denham Elliott, is sat at the dinner table discussing with the ladies how they should change their rooms so that they have a room with a view. And he stabs himself in the chest with his fork, repeating, "I don't need a view, my vision is within." Great stuff. Okay, at number 2 is Pride and Prejudice, the BBC version from 1995. This mini-series always comes high on people's lists as kind of a new gold standard of period drama and adaptation. It's practically perfect to the point that it's almost impossible to go back and read Pride and Prejudice without hearing Alison Steadman's voice as Mrs. Bennet. The wit, the heartache, the themes of revulsion and attraction that make the novel so readable serve to make this adaptation so watchable. Okay, before we get to number 1, some honorable mentions. To Kill a Mockingbird from 1962 is a fantastic adaptation, but since Harper Lee herself was somewhat involved with the screenplay and was on set during filming, I felt there wasn't enough distance between the publication of the book and the film, so I've discounted it on this list, but with love. We have to mention Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. I'm not one of those stuffy academics who dismisses fantasy as a genre. I think the books are incredible. I think the films are perfect adaptations. I went to see all of them at the cinema with my kids, and we love them. The only reason I haven't included them on this list is the timescale. I wanted period work for this list. I've mentioned this film in another story. It deserves an honourable mention here. It's A Cock and Bull Story with Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon. It's a retelling of Lawrence Stern's The Life of Tristram Shandy. It's an incredible film. I loved this as an adaptation, but it also involves a significant part of the film focusing on the troubled actors and film crew as they try to adapt this extraordinary 9-volume book. And of course, no list of adaptations would be complete without at least an honourable mention for probably the finest adaptation of them all, The Muppet Christmas Carol. So, my number one, can you guess? It's The Personal History of David Copperfield, directed by Armando Iannucci. I admit it, this film blew me away. Not only is it a more than adequate retelling of the original novel, but it also serves to comment on the act of adaptation using kind of surreal theatrical transitions, which I just find really compelling. Dev Patel is perfect as Copperfield, conveying both the required innocent hope and resilience of our hero. And Tilda Swinton, Hugh Laurie, Peter Capaldi, Ben Whishaw, and Anirin Barnard are all excellent. It's a film that makes me not only fall in love with the novel again, but also with the act and art of adaptation. I already was a big fan of Armando Iannucci right back to his original comedy show and his work on Alan Partridge, The Thick of It, and Veep, and The Death of Stalin. But the beauty and the sensitivity that he adopted in retelling this great story of David Copperfield on film, for me, makes it an amazing adaptation. And it's my number one because it really made me want to go back and read the novel again. That's my list of 10. There are so many others we could discuss, so let me know, what have I missed out from the list? What do you think makes a great adaptation and why? Give me a comment and hit subscribe if this is your kind of thing. I'll see you next week for another episode of Culture Decoded.